You're looking at the tallest building in the world. It's 327 meters tall, which is 1,073 feet for people who don't do metric. But that's not even the coolest thing about it. The most impressive part of this megastructure is that it was built by plants. This forest tower, known to scientists as a giant sequoia, is the result of thousands of years of growth by a single organism. That's right. These trees are connected by their roots and their branches to form one giant living cell. If you were to chop down one of these massive trees, you would find that its root system is intertwined with all of the other trees in the grove, and that each tree's roots are connected to every other tree via a vast underground fungal network. Together, they form a kind of superorganism, a single living being made up of many parts. But how did plants conquer the land and build these incredible structures? To answer that question, we need to start at the beginning, because plants weren't always so dominant. In fact, there was a time when they almost didn't exist at all. Before plants evolved, life on Earth was all about the oceans. And the reason for this is simple. Life needs water. All living things need water to survive. And early life forms were no exception. But back then, around 400 million years ago, the only place you could find enough of this essential resource was the ocean. That's why today's organisms are mostly aquatic animals and algae. The first plants began to appear on land sometime around 470 million years ago. Scientists call these early plants rhyophytes. Rhyophytes were simple organisms with thin, delicate branching structures called axes that grew upward toward the sunlight. Their tissues were also supported by a strong central vascular structure, which is an important adaptation because as a plant gets taller, gravity makes it harder for water to flow upwards. So some sort of rigid support structure is needed to overcome this force. But perhaps the most important adaptation that rhyophytes had for life on land was a waxy covering that prevented them from drying out. These adaptations allowed the first plants to leave the shallows and begin exploring the land. But they were still nowhere near becoming dominant. They hadn't yet conquered the challenges of life away from the sea. For example, they lacked the structures needed to collect and conduct water efficiently. As a result, they were small, only growing to be a few centimeters tall. Because they couldn't grow very big, they couldn't perform the process we associate with plants today, photosynthesis. You see, photosynthesis requires these structures called stomata, which are tiny openings that allow for gas exchange. Okay, but having these structures came with risks. While stomata help plants get the carbon dioxide they need for photosynthesis, they also lose water through them. So if a plant has stomata, it can either photosynthesize or retain water, but it can't do both at the same time. In order to evolve more efficient methods of photosynthesis, plants needed to get bigger. And in order to get bigger, they needed more efficient systems for conducting water. It wasn't until around 420 million years ago that the first vascular plants evolved. Like the rhyophytes before them, they had the advantage of a central vascular structure, which enabled them to grow much taller. With greater height came new opportunities. By growing taller, plants could access more sunlight, but they also had a better view of their surroundings. It was at this point in history that plants began to develop specialized structures for reproduction. Before this, all life on Earth reproduced the same way, with single cells splitting into two. But plants chose a different path. They developed structures like cones and flowers to attract animals to transfer genetic material from one plant to another. And, as you might have guessed, this was a major innovation, because it took the efficiency of reproduction to a whole new level. Animals could travel long distances quickly and deliver pollen much more effectively than any other method of the time. With this advantage, plants experienced a huge burst of diversification. And that's when the race to become the biggest, most successful organism on the planet really began. But in order for plants to thrive, they needed to develop a defense against the animals that ate them. After all, there's nothing more nutritious than the young, succulent shoots of a plant. The earliest vascular plants attempted to solve this problem by growing low to the ground and hiding among the rocks and sediments. Over time, though, the plants that grew taller and stronger became less vulnerable to hungry animals. Eventually, they evolved woody tissues, which made them even tougher and able to grow much larger. And so, the plants just kept getting bigger and bigger. Today, giant sequoias, like the one we looked at the beginning of this video, can grow over 300 feet tall. And the tallest tree that's ever lived, named Hyperion, stands at a staggering 380 feet. But while these magnificent trees dominate the forests they live in, they aren't the oldest living organisms. That distinction belongs to the bristlecone pine, which can live for more than 5,000 years. So plants have come a long way since those first primitive organisms evolved the ability to grow on land. They've adapted to every biome on the planet and are more diverse than all other kingdoms of life combined. But despite their diversity, plants are often overlooked. We tend to take them for granted, even though they're essential to our survival. Most of us know that plants produce the oxygen we need to breathe. But few of us realize just how much of an impact they have on our daily lives. Not only do they make the air we breathe, but they also prevent soil erosion, provide food and shelter for countless animals, and capture carbon dioxide, helping to regulate Earth's climate. But what about the places where plants don't grow? We think of deserts as barren wastelands, but they're anything but. There are plenty of living things in the desert, just not plants. Deserts are actually full of animals and microbes, and in the absence of plants, these organisms have had to adapt in extraordinary ways to survive. Take, for example, the kangaroo rat. This little rodent doesn't need to drink water to survive, gets all of the moisture it needs from the seeds that it eats. Meanwhile, desert microbes have found ways to capture carbon dioxide at night when temperatures are cooler. When the sun rises and temperatures begin to soar, they seal their stomata and wait for the heat to pass. So plants may dominate the planet, but it's not a complete victory. There are plenty of environments where other organisms have found ways to thrive without them, but plants aren't going anywhere. And as long as they're around, life on Earth will continue to evolve. As we wrap up this episode, we want to thank all of our patrons for supporting this channel and our team as we bring you stories about the amazing animals that inhabit our planet. If you'd like to become a patron, you can head over to our support page to learn more. Until next time, thanks for watching.